I'm Chuck, alcoholic. Grateful to be here. Was hoping for some slow readers to start this thing out tonight. And I don't think I've ever been up to speak at 5 after. Yeah, grateful to be asked. David S. asked me to speak about a month ago. I was telling everybody, he called me up today to remind me, and I acted like I was at the beach, and he started going into a panic. I was like, well, I got you. But he said he hated he was going to miss it tonight. My home group is Keeping It Sober group down in Aberdeen. We meet on Tuesday and Saturday nights. We just celebrated our 20th year this past Saturday, and we had a great speaker. Too bad you guys weren't there. You know, this has been a lot better than tonight for sure. But man, I'll tell you what, my sobriety date is 3/18/93, so been around a little bit. But I can remember when I first got into the program, I was like, I felt like I was some kind of gangster, that I was, you know, and now it's like all these years later, it's like, you know, my story's boring, it's all get out. Just stayed drunk way too long, and, you know, just your average, like old Ted C. used to say, I don't know if y'all remember him, Mr. Clark, and another bozo on the bus. That's what he would say, wasn't it, AJ? Yeah. You know, I'm just another drunk, just an average drunk. I started out, I mean, I don't know, I don't really have any reason that you know, other than the disease of alcoholism, because my family, there was no alcohol. My parents didn't drink. We were, this is a Baptist church, isn't it? I was raised Baptist. Look out for those damn fire and brimstone coming down. But I was raised up in the church, and, you know, both my parents went to church, and my mom and dad, like I said, there was never any alcohol in the house. I'd never seen my mother take a drink at all. My dad, he might have a beer or two at a company function or something. He worked for, back then it was CP&L, it's Duke Energy now, but so that's what he did. But my earliest memories, I was born in Asheboro, and we lived in Raleigh for a little while, but I don't really remember any of that. And I think I was 5 or 6 years old. We moved down in the edge of Robeson County down in Maxton, North Carolina. That's where I grew up. That's where I learned to trade. I ended up back up this way at the end, but you know, there wasn't a lot to do down there, but it was a nice small town. And, you know, my father coached my little league baseball teams, and he coached the little junior football and stuff like that. And I mean, he was always active in the community. And my mom, she was busy having babies and raising youngins. There was 5 of us. I've got an older sister, and I've got a brother that's in recovery that's 9 years younger than me. And then they're every 2 years from there down to get to him. So, you know, nothing, I mean, I don't have any trauma to talk about or anything like that. I just, you know, just like I've heard a lot of times from behind the podium, you know, I guess I was just always, I know today it was just self-centeredness, but I was always, you know, never comfortable. You know, I had friends and stuff, but, you know, it was always, I didn't even really feel like I fit in with my family, to be honest with you. And, you know, I didn't have any, I wasn't an outstanding student by any means, and, you know, if somebody beat me on something, I would give up. I mean, that's always been a thing. That was a common thread in my drinking and stuff. And I can remember, I don't know, it was early on, 1st or 2nd grade or something. They gave us you know, see who could read the most books over the summer. Man, I was reading books. I mean, like See George Run, See Spot Piss, and, you know, a lot of the sports, all the sports stuff. I love sports stories, you know, and I was reading these books that were like 25 pages. And I came back, I was like, I got this thing. I think I'd read like 60 or 70 books over the summer, and some guy had read like 100, and some. I was like, damn it, I never read another book the rest of my school. You know, I mean, I don't like reading now. I'm glad we got TV. But, you know, so it's one of them deals. I mean, you know, just anything like that, if, you know, I would give up. And, you know, I was, you know, I didn't really get in a whole lot of trouble, but you know, way before I ever started drinking, I was, you know, I was always, I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't a great student, but I made C's and D's and stuff like that. Every now and then I'd get a B. And my older sister, she was a straight A student, and she was like 2 years ahead of me. She ended up going to governor's school and got scholarships to UNC and NC State, went through law school and all that. And I remember her crying one time because she made a B or something. And I was the exact opposite, I was like, and it was funny because the teachers, when I would come along the first few years, they'd be like, oh, that's Lee Ann's brother. And within like a week or two, they'd be like, damn, what happened to him? I think they got the wrong baby at the hospital or something. But, I did just enough to get by, and I can remember I would do good like the first semester, then I would cruise, and I knew exactly what I had to do to get, back in them days they just moved you on along. I mean, you had to really be screwing up to fail a grade, but anyway, like I said, I can remember the first time I got the effects of alcohol, and I tried some beer a few times. We would steal beer from one of my best friends. His parents owned a Safeway grocery store down there, so we could get anything we wanted to. And we graduated from throwing eggs at cars to drinking beer out on the little camping out and stuff. And I could never drink enough beer to get a buzz. I was pouring out more than I was drinking, when those guys weren't looking. I don't know if any of y'all did that, but one night we got some, I think it was, I won't say it was cold duck, or it was like a wine cooler or something. And I can remember taking a big old gulp of that stuff, and it wasn't nearly as bad as that old Hot Pabst Blue Ribbon had been. It'd been sitting out in that field for 2 weeks before we drank it. And I got about one of those in me, and I started feeling pretty good. I was like, both those guys, one of them he was a football player, and I was 13 years old. My first time I got drunk was 13 years old. And both of them, their parents were business owners, had stores. One of them had the grocery store. The other guy, his parents had the Firestone. And I always felt less things. My dad, he was just like me. He worked with his hands. He worked for a living, climbed poles and stuff. And, I got that first wine cooler in me, and, all of a sudden I thought, I started sitting up straight. All my pimples got smaller. My ears shrunk a little bit, and felt like maybe I might even had a hair on my chest or something. I drank another one, and man, the more I drank, the better I felt. And I started telling jokes, and I didn't even know any jokes. And I don't remember a whole lot after that, but them guys told me I had a hell of a time. The next day they were like, "Man, I ain't never seen you having that much fun." And but I can remember enough. I remember waking up the next day, and I had a hangover. And I'm a blackout drinker, from the start, from day one. I've never been any kind of control. I never really liked beer because you couldn't drink it really fast enough to get to where I wanted. But I got a blackout. I blacked out that night, and I don't remember much about it. I had a big old throbbing headache, and I had obviously thrown up because my pillow and my sleeping bag were both purple. And, I can remember, where's this been? It was a spiritual experience. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I needed that. It was the most freed I'd ever felt in my life, for whatever, 45 minutes before I blacked out or whatever it was. And, like I said, there was no alcohol in my household. And, it wasn't easy to get alcohol when you're 13 years old. But I don't remember the next occasion, but I can remember the first time I drank any liquor, and it was probably not too long after that. We had a little band. I played in a little garage band or whatever you want to call it. There was about 4 or 5 of my friends, and we knew about 4 songs. And this girl had moved to Maxon, and she was from, I think it was Elizabeth City or somewhere, so she was like, sophisticated to us anyway. And she had a birthday party, and I'm not sure she hired us to play or we volunteered, but anyway, it was up at the little Legion Hut up there in Maxton. And we played our first set, which, like I said, it's 4. We only knew 4 songs, so every set was the same 4 songs. But anyway, we played our first set, and it was, time for us to take a break. And I walked back there, and they had this little kitchen. I was like, "What are y'all doing?" And they had the girl. She had a bottle of Bacardi rum. It had about that much in it. she's like, "Have you ever tried any rum?" I was like, "No, let me see it." And I chugged every bit of it. I didn't know, I thought it was like wine, I drank wine, a couple of beers, and I don't remember much, but it didn't take but about 15 minutes. I mean, I was falling down drunk, and I don't know if somebody called the police or if they just showed up to see what was going on. But the police showed up, and one of my best friends and another guy there in town had been dating the same girl. And when the police got there, they were holding me up because I couldn't stand up. But the police thought I was keeping them from fighting because I guess, it's a small town, everybody knew what was going on. So the next day, my dad's like, "I heard what you did," and I was thinking, I'm in trouble now. He's like, "I can't believe you broke up that fight." It's like, so what are you talking about? But the police thought that I was breaking up the fight, and they were holding me up because I couldn't stand up. So it was pretty awesome. But that was my first experience with liquor, and after that, that's what I wanted to drink. I mean, beer wouldn't. It was just, I was like a 70-pound kid at that time. I couldn't, 2 beers would fill me up so much that it wasn't really worth the work. But I loved the effect. I loved what the alcohol did for me. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, Richard described it as he lets him come out to play like he'd been outside watching everybody play, and all of a sudden the door opened and you get to go out and play with everybody else. And that's exactly how I felt when under the influence of alcohol. I did a lot of other stuff. I started doing some other stuff in high school, and, mostly mild stuff, little pot here and there. Well, not a little, a lot of pot here and there, and drinking. It was, it's hard to get alcohol, like I said, till we were about 10th grade or whatever. The drinking age was 18 then, and but they'd ask for no ID when you went to buy the weed. If you had your $5, you were getting some. So I mean, it was readily accessible, and it wasn't. That stuff we had back then is nothing like they got now. My God, you can drive down the road and catch a buzz behind some of these cars. I mean, it makes me sick to my stomach. It's so strong. But anyway, but that went on, and I mean, I really break my drinking career down, and I drank for 18 years before I got sober, drinking and did other stuff from 13 to 31. And I mean, the first 6 years was good, I mean, yeah, there was some stuff happening, but I mean, it was good. I mean, I was enjoying it. I was having a blast. You couldn't convince me that there was a problem. I had, other than a little bit of family issues and stuff at school or whatever. But, from 19 to 25 was, I was starting to have a little trouble, I mean, DUI, discharged from the Navy for drinking and drugging, changing jobs, obviously a lot more issues with my family and stuff, but, enough that I could convince myself it was worth it. But that last 6 years was a nightmare. And, I never really thought about stopping, but it was like constant thoughts of, man, I just wish I was dead. I mean, I was suicidal, and I'd be riding in a car with somebody, tractor trailer would be coming the other way, and I'd be like just wishing that thing would come over in our lane and just take us out. I was a coward. I wasn't going to do it to myself, but I got a lot of stories, a lot of stuff. One of my earliest incidents was I got a possession charge right after I graduated high school. Like, I was still 18. We hadn't been out of school with about a couple of weeks maybe. And I can remember going to court, and the judge gave me a fine, and it wasn't a big deal. It was like like a badge of courage or something. I went around bragging about, I got busted, and I had one DUI. I used to always say I only had one DUI, but I mean, a while back, I thought, how many people get one DUI? And I looked at it, statistics for about, one Google said 1 point something, the other Google said 2.1% of the population gets a DUI. So that's, that's 1 or 2 people out of 100. So, I mean, if you got one DUI, I mean, I was like, I couldn't be an alcoholic. I only had one DUI. Well, 98 out of 100 people don't get a DUI. They may drink, but they don't drive. And I was a drinker and a driver. I was a drinker and a dialer. I mean, thank God if we'd had cell phones when I was drinking, I've been calling and driving at the same time. I had some incidents. I'll never forget one time I must have got drunk and I called my boss up and his mother-in-law answered and I must have hit on her or something. And she was pretty old and he's like, "What did you say to her?" I was like, "I don't know, I don't remember." But she always grinned and winked at me anytime I'd go over there after that. But she didn't do that, but that was a true story. But I would get drunk. I remember I joined the Navy when I was, I was probably 21, yeah, when I was 21, me and a friend of mine joined the Navy, and we were trying to get in the Air Force. I'll tell you what happened. I don't know if y'all remember when the Marines got blown up over in Beirut. Anyway, it's kind of like the 911 when everybody was like, yeah, all patriotic. We got drunk one night and we decided we were going to go join the military. So the next day we went up to Lumberton and went to the Air Force. We've done our research. We knew the Air Force was going to be the easiest boot camp and stuff. And, they don't really, you're least likely to get killed if you're in the Air Force, unless you're a pilot, I guess. But we took all the tests and, waited for them to call, and they called us up, and the guy's like, "Well, y'all, you did pretty good on your tests, but you didn't mention the fact that you had a misdemeanor possession charge." He's like, in the Air Force, we've got, you can't get in, so we don't have a zero tolerance for any kind of criminal record. He's like, but the Navy will take anybody. So we went back up to Lumberton, went to the Navy recruiter, and like 4 weeks later, I was on a plane to Orlando, Florida. And, I did pretty good. I just drank for a while, but when I'm under the influence of alcohol, I make bad decisions. That's why I know as long as I don't pick up a drink, I'm not going to end up doing any other stuff, because I'm not going to consciously make that decision. But if I'm under the influence of alcohol, I always made everything I did the first time I was drinking. I'm not going to name the list of stuff, but everything I tried the first time, I was under the influence of alcohol. And I heard a good speaker speak one time down at Serenity to the gratitude retreat from Houston, Texas, and he said, that he knew if he treated his primary problem, that everything else behind it would clear up. And I found that to be true in my case. But it was just, another deal for me. I'm on a bus coming back from San Diego, California, with a discharge. The Navy fired me, kicked me out, whatever you want to call it. And I was 25 years old, and I was like, this is a time to make a change. But that was like within 24 hours. It's like it wasn't that big of a deal. It's going to be a fresh start. We'll come back. My parents had moved up here to Aberdeen. I'm gonna start playing golf, wearing golf shirts, and meet a rich girl, and that's gonna solve all my problems. Because I was a geographical cure guy. If I could just get, the right job, or enough money in the bank, or meet the right girl, or some friends, not those losers I've been hanging with. I was dragging them down, truth be told. But it was never about not drinking, not using. It was about my circumstances. If they would change, everything will be okay. And that's the little delusion, it talks about in the book, and I was under it bad. I get into it today. I still have, man, I tell you what, I'm tired of my job. I'm going to go over here and do this, or I'm going to move here, or I'm going to buy a new car, or whatever. It's trying to fix the inside with the outside solution, and it doesn't work. But, stuff got bad, and some harder stuff came around, and I got on that, and I was still drinking. But I always, I got into construction when I first got out of the Navy, and ended up getting in with the crew, learning how to do electrical work, and we traveled around, and I lived in hotel rooms for one job for a year, another job for 6-8 months, and You know, I didn't have any responsibility, I didn't have any bills, I didn't have no driver's license. I'd gotten that one DUI, you know, back in, when I was about 26, I guess. And that's just how I lived, you know. And I didn't own anything, I didn't have an address. Anytime that, you know, I didn't have work, I would always end up, my parents would let me move back in. You know, I was just irresponsible. I did buy a car one time. I bought it one of those places where you pay each week, and I made the down payment, never paid them anything else. And bought some tags from one of my job superintendents. His girlfriend could get tags. And I don't think about this kind of stuff. It's like, really? She can give me some tags? Well, hey, $100, she'll get you a set of tags. Well, they were stolen. And so I got the car back. Ended up, anyway, long story short, I found out they were stolen when they came to arrest me for a for a probation violation about a year later, and the car had been parked at my parents' house for about a year. And I'd ended up getting in some trouble up there and got put on supervised probation. And I was doing pretty good with that, you know, showing up and paying my little thing and showing her my check stub and all that. But when the job was up, and then we didn't, you know, I went back, ended up back in Moore County instead. You know, I mean, I was like, well, they're never gonna, you know, I mean, she's not gonna mess with me. So I'd never told her I was moving or anything, or had my probation transferred. And you know, it took about a year, 10 months. I came home one day. We were working on a high-rise job up in Raleigh, but we drove up there every day. And I came home, I went in, and he's like, well, it's like, first of all, did you know the tags on that car out there are stolen? I was like, no, I didn't know that. He's like, and then the other thing is, they've got a warrant for your arrest in Mecklenburg County. You got two choices. They said you can go up, I can bring you up there to to Moore County, and they'll lock you up and then transport you up there, or we can go up in the morning and talk to your probation officer. And I ended up going before the judge. We drove up to Charlotte, and it was my first experience. They sentenced me to AA. That's what they did to the judge. She's like, look, the judge and her went up there and talked, and you know how it is. I don't know if any of y'all ever been to court. But anyway, if you have, you know, they go up there and they're whispering and stuff, and you're like thinking, oh God, what are they talking about? But anyway, they negotiated that I'd go get some AA meetings and get my paper signed. And I can remember my dad, he was pissed, boy. He had to take off work to drive me up there, and then we're coming back. And finally, I guess he cooled off enough, and he looked at me, he's like, where are we going to find any AA meetings in Aberdeen? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't even know they had that stuff. I thought they only had that like in New York or somewhere. And but we lived about 5 minutes from the Aberdeen building right there, and lived about a block from the Bethesda halfway house. I always wondered what them guys were doing up there. But anyway, ended up going to a couple of meetings, got my paper signed, and you know, I mean, I'll tell you a little story. I always consider myself, I don't know if any of y'all consider yourself highly intelligent. I mean, you know, I think it's a requirement to be an alcoholic. You have to think you're smarter than everybody else. But anyway, we had a little paper signing deal. But going back to that, I can remember when I first got sober, and I struggled a little bit. I had a sponsor, but I was slipping and sliding, and I'd never really filled out a job application. And, you know, I'd always gotten hired because friends of mine would get a job, and they would bring me along because they were in, you know, supervised positions and stuff, and we would get on. I mean, it was a red flag because we're always getting these companies from out of state. Nobody local would hire us, you know, but these people from out of state come down here to do jobs. They didn't know any better. They just needed somebody quick. And but anyway, I was getting away from those guys. I'd been sober about 8 or 9 months, and I had never filled out a job application, you know, as far as, you know, putting anything down other than my name, my number, my social security number. And my first sponsor, Raymond, he was the credit manager at Perry Brothers Tire. So I mean, you know, he was a smart guy. And I asked him, I was like, well, you know, is there anything I need to know? He's like, yeah. He's like, Chuck. He's like, when you go in there, you're gonna fill a bunch of stuff out, and then down there at the bottom, it's gonna ask, do you have any special qualifications that can help you with this job? And I was like, oh yeah. It's like, what should I put? He's like, you let them know you're the smartest guy in AA. I was like, damn. So it's, you know, it's a little humbling, but he knew me, you know, and that's what I needed. I needed somebody that was, loved me enough to tell me the truth. And but anyway, how did I end up getting sober? I didn't get sober after the meeting, getting my paper signed, having the signing party. I ended up keeping drinking for about 5 more years. I want to say that was like 86 or 87 when I got in that trouble. And my sobriety date's 93, so maybe about 5 or 6 more years. And it got really bad. And by this time, my brother was 16, 17 years old. And he's doing the same thing I'm doing. And, we just got our parents held hostage. Everybody else is out of the house, but I'm living there, and he's living there. And it was just a bad situation. I felt, my parents went through hell with us, especially me. But what happened was, thank God, his girlfriend gave him an ultimatum. And I think it was around Thanksgiving of 92, that if he didn't get some help, that was it. She was done with him. And he went over and checked into the Pinehurst Treatment Center. My sister helped him get in Pinehurst Treatment Center. And he went through the 28-day program. And, they had some kind of family deal that you were supposed to go to. And I was like, man, I'm not going to no family deal. And my parents went to enough of the little meetings to realize that, they needed to start doing that tough love thing. I hadn't experienced that, because my mom, she was my, she was like my savior. She would never let me suffer. And, I put her through hell. It'd be 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd be drunk somewhere down in Maxton or something, and she would always get up and come get me, drive down there and pick me up or whatever, So I decided, I'm gonna do this AA thing because I need a place to live. I didn't have anywhere to go. And I started going down to the building because they brought them out on the bus down there to the meetings back then. They were brought back then Thursday night and Saturday night were both speaker meetings in Aberdeen. And they would bus those patients in from PTC. And my brother went through the 28-day deal, and he got out. And I think he relapsed pretty quick, but he struggled as much as I did. But I started going to the meetings, and about the end, I can remember the marathon. I was hanging out down there at the marathon. I think it was 24 hours a day at that time. If anybody's not familiar with the marathon, it's where the AA building's open and people are down there during the holidays. A lot of people struggle during the holiday season. And now I was kind of sober. I was still smoking a little pot here and there. Well, more than a little. But so I'd catch a buzz and go down to the marathon and eat cookies and stuff. Talk about how hard sobriety was, because you hear somebody, oh man, I'm coming up on 30 days, it's tough. And I'm like, yeah, I got 45, I'm struggling. But you know what? For the first time ever, I felt like I fit in somewhere because everybody was so nice to me. And it had been years since anybody wanted me around. My family didn't want me around. My friends didn't really want me around. I wasn't really that welcome anywhere. And I started hanging out down there at the marathon and ended up getting a sponsor and got a sponsor. I didn't pick him. Thank God somebody sober picked him. I was at that Monday night meeting over there at the other church right down the road here. I think it's the Bronson. They had a speaker meeting upstairs and an NA meeting downstairs at Monday night, and the girl chairing the meeting announced that if you need a temporary sponsor, see her after the meeting. And somehow I got the courage to go up there and ask her, if she could assign me a temporary sponsor. And she introduced me to Raymond Worrell. He was my first sponsor. A great guy, just awesome guy. He was active in AA. He gave me his number, and he told me, he's like, I'm going to the 2 o'clock meeting on Sunday. He's like, you meet me over there and we'll talk after the meeting. I thought he was going to interview me, see if I was, quality sponsorship material or whatever. And, I thought about it, and I ended up going. It's like, that was on a Monday, and the meeting was on Sunday, and whenever I met him, and he sat there after a meeting for about 30, 45 minutes, told me his story. And you know, we had nothing in common. He was just straight drunk, beer drinker, and country from the mountains. I mean, yeah, I'm country too, but I'm not a mountain country. I mean, you know, I'm a, you know, sophisticated country, but he was a hillbilly, is what he was. But that guy was smart. He was awesome. And he's like, all right. He's like, we're in this together. He's like, I only got two things. It was either two or three things. I can remember two of them. He's like, I want you to promise me that you'll call me before you take a drink. He's like, I want you to call me at 7 o'clock every night, 7 days a week. That's before cell phones, so I'd have to be there and call him up, and it would always be the same conversation. I didn't realize, I thought he went to meetings every night too. I was wondering if the guy had 9 years sober, why he was, I'm like, damn, I don't know about this. I'm like, I don't want to be going to a meeting every night when I'm 9 years sober. But he was going to a meeting every night because he knew I needed to be picked up, taken to a meeting. But I would call him up, and we would talk about something, usually about, you know, well, how was your day? You know, 5 or 6 minutes into the conversation, he's like, well, you know, I'm going over there I'm going to go to West End tonight or whatever. He wouldn't ask me if I wanted to go. He wanted me to, you know, humble myself enough to ask for help and see if he would come by and pick me up, and he would. And, you know, I don't know that there wasn't a handful of times I ever rode with him that he didn't have another drunk in the car with him. I mean, he's one of them guys that just hauled drunks around the meetings. And we formed a great relationship. And like I said, I struggled. My sobriety date's in March, and I started coming to the meetings around December of the year before. So about 4 or 5 months before I really surrendered. But, you know, and what's that clock saying back there? I'm getting close. You know, early sobriety for me, I mean, I don't really remember, but I hear a lot of people talk about how hard it was, and I know it was hard. I was still working with the same guys that I had worked with for years, and that we had all, I mean, everybody was a drunk, you know, and I got a lot of flack from them guys, and they were like, you going to them meetings, and, you know, just picking on me and stuff. But I had a couple of friends that were the guys that supported me. I got one friend that I'm still friends with today, you know, 30-some. Well, I've known him over 40 years now. He actually trained me in my field. He was the first guy that took the time to teach me anything in the electrical field instead of making me run, just go get stuff. And he supported me. He was a good guy. We still keep in contact today. And, you know, he'd always tell me, he's like, Chuck, don't you listen to those guys. He's like, you're doing the right thing. And, you know, I appreciate it, because people like that, you know, if it wasn't for the non-alcoholics, none of us be here today, because when AA first started out, the non-alcoholics were very influential. And if you know the history of AA, I mean, wasn't just Bill and Bob getting together. It was a lot going on that made that happen. But I mean, my parents supported me. My brother ended up he ended up having a little slip. We had the same sobriety date for a little while. He went away to a halfway house in Rocky Mountain. He had a little slip that year, 4th of July or something. That's his sobriety date. So he's about 3 months behind me, but we both got sober the same year. And he ended up making a whole new life up in Rocky Mountain. Has done amazing. He's got a killer business, 50, 60 employees. Him and another guy that he met in that same halfway house went into business together. And I mean, they're multimillionaires now. And, you know, so, and they hire a lot of people from recovery. But, you know, it just, you know, got involved, started doing the deal and getting in service, chairing meetings. Had a lot of people that helped me out, Mitch and Cheryl and Dwayne S., my sponsor, and guys like Bill and Steve and AJ. I mean, I've known them the whole time I've been sober. And, you know, just got involved in Alcoholics Anonymous and chairing meetings and, you know, getting in service and sponsoring guys, not with much success, but every now and then you get one that stay sober a little while. And, you know, just over the years, I've done about every phase of service there is, detox, corrections. I'm pretty slack now. I am the treasurer for my group, which is, you know, not really a full-time job, but I mean, you know, I'm just finally, after 30 some years, they trust me with the money. So I was wondering when it was going to happen. But I was treasurer for the building down there for about 5 years. That was, that wasn't easy. But just one day at a time, I ended up getting married. Probably the only time I've struggled in recovery was during that period, because it didn't have anything to do with her. It's like my identity changed from I was married to Chuck all of a sudden. She worked for Bill. Bill was her boss, and so we started hanging out with her friends, and I was still going to meetings, but I wasn't active. I probably didn't chair a meeting or do anything for about 3 or 4 years while that was going on. And obviously she was smarter than I was, because she decided she wanted to move back to Oklahoma where her mother lived. And just happened that like within a week or two of that going on, they started planning on doing this home group down there in Aberdeen. And I got it involved in that, and that saved my ass, because I tell you what, I don't know. I don't know if I was going to drink, but I was definitely contemplating driving to Oklahoma and shooting her, especially the mother-in-law, and driving back and trying to figure out how I'm going to, well, I didn't have a gun, but still, how am I going to get out there, shoot them, and get back without anybody knowing I did it, just insane. I wasn't really planning it, but those were the thoughts going through my head. And, started back over and, got involved and got on fire with AA again. I hadn't been on fire for a little while. And, I can remember, it's just weird to be over here speaking without Tom and Wallace and Neil, old man Neil in here, all those old timers. You could come over here and speak, and there's like 150 years of sobriety sitting in 3 seats. And, now, it's just amazing how the program works, but it seems like everybody's new now. But I can remember when I was new, it seemed like everybody had a lot of time, and it's just crazy. But I've made some great friends over the years, and, I've been, I couldn't hold down a job. I could never have a place to live, I've had the same address for 20 years. I've had the same job for going to be 27 years in about a month, September 25th, and I'm the boss, so it is amazing I've been able to keep that job. But I hadn't been on probation since I came to AA. I hadn't been to court for anything but a speeding ticket since I came to AA. I hadn't had a damn speeding ticket in a while. I don't want to jinx it, but I was driving. It ain't because I ain't speeding. I just hadn't got caught. But, it's just amazing what can happen. Just putting down the drink, putting down the other substances, my life got better. But when you add all the other stuff into it, and everything I know about how to live, I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous. I learned that if you make a commitment, you show up. That's number one. And I hear it all the time. People are like, I can't believe you were on time. They're expecting me to call them and be late. People just won't show up and stuff. And, I learned that, to be fully self-supporting and, take care of myself and, all the stuff that they teach us in AA. It all started out with making coffee, cleaning cigarettes, ashtrays, making that commitment. That's back in the day when you had to make a big old pot of coffee. You had to get there an hour early because the coffee pot took 45 minutes. I can remember the first time I had chair a meeting down there at Tuesday night. Back those days, there was like a million years of sobriety in Aberdeen on Tuesday night. It was one of the big meetings. And I was scared to death I was going to mess that coffee up. My sponsor told me, he's like, you can't screw up a meeting unless you screw up the coffee. It's like, you mess the coffee up, it don't matter how good the meeting goes. He's like, don't you mess up that coffee. And, I learned to make a lot of coffee. And had a lot of guys. I've had 3, 4. I'm on my 4th sponsor now. 2 of them are in heaven. Mitch S., he died back in 2020. He was my 3rd sponsor, and then Raymond, my 1st sponsor, God bless him, died 2 years ago, and he got a drunk driver ran a stop sign, T-boned him and killed him. He's 38 years sober. And 10 o'clock in the morning, so we're still out there doing damage, and I just hope whoever that guy, or it might have been a woman, I don't know, I just know got what happened. I just hope they got the message of Alcoholics Anonymous wherever they went, because I mean that's the way this thing works, I mean some people start out with tragedy and end up helping so many people, it's unbelievable. But I'm just grateful that I've been able to stay sober, and all the people that have helped me stay sober, because I can't do anything on my own. And my third sponsor, he moved to Michigan, and Bill's my sponsor now. Even though I don't never talk to him, but I mean, I go and get a sandwich every now and then, so I count that as a meeting. But I'll tell you a story. Last year, about this time, I hadn't been feeling good. I thought I had COVID or cold or something. And about the end of August, and I had all this congestion. I was taking all this daggum cold medicine and stuff, and a bunch of my friends had COVID, and I was like, well, it must be COVID. And it went on and went on and went on. And about the last week of September, I was like, man, I don't know about this. And I mean, it was started where I'd wake up in the middle of the night. I don't know if y'all ever took a lot of that white stuff or whatever. That's what it felt like. I mean, just real anxious, like my chest was real tight. Finally, I was like, damn, I'm stubborn. I don't, it takes me a while to get it. I said, I better go over here to this doctor. So I went up there to the place in Southern Pines, and they did a couple of tests, and they came back in there, and the guy's like, well, you're going to need to go over to the emergency room. I was like, all right, I'll drive on over. He's like, no, you can't drive. He's like, you're in congenital heart failure. He's like, you either go on an ambulance or have somebody come pick you up. I'm like, oh, shit, is that bad? And I could tell by their concern. What had happened, I'd been in AFib for about a month, and which won't really kill you. I mean, I don't think anybody knows anything. The biggest issue with that is you can have a stroke from blood clots, but it made my heart so weak I was down to about 15% heart capacity. So I ended up spending a week in the hospital, and it was it was like, wow, reality. I'm not invincible. So that's a whole another humbling thing. I'm better now. I'm back. My heart's back 100%. I had some kind of damn surgery back in July where they go in there and burn something. So hopefully it won't happen again. There for a little while, it was, I could have died. I mean, I was probably pretty close. In fact, one of the medicines they put me on while I was in there, they have to monitor you because 1 out of 300 people is allergic to you, so it can make your heart stop. Guess who the 1 out of 300 was? So I passed out in the bathroom, and all these nurses were in there, and I hadn't pulled my pants up yet, so I'm laying there. They're like, I'm like, it's like a TV commercial or not a commercial, like one of those doctor things where everybody, you only see it from the TV version. I got to see it from down here version. They're like, But anyway, I was dead for 9 seconds, and I didn't see Jesus, and I didn't see the devil, so I'm not sure where I was at. I might be stuck in between, but I was glad to come back. And, it wasn't that big of a deal to me. I was joking around with the nurses. I could tell by looking in their eyes, it scared them, because they filled my room up. And, but anyway, that was a great experience to share about in AA talk. Here's the deal. If you're new in here, stick around. And as bad as things may seem now, if you stay long enough, you're still going to have bad stuff happen. You just don't remember it as long. And the other day, I went into Harris Teeter's to get some groceries. And it took me 3 trips to get what I went in there for. The first time I went in, I went through the self-checkout, and I left a bag of stuff in there, and I went back in to get it, and on the way back to the truck, I remember what I really came to get to start with. So, I mean, hey, gotta love it. It's AA, you stick around long enough, you'll be there too. But I appreciate David asking me to speak, appreciate Richard introducing me, and I appreciate all you guys for helping me stay sober today. Thank you.